You think Mandalorians are just cool armor and jetpacks. You're wrong. You know the surface, the helmets that never come off, the warriors who never surrender, the culture that turned "this is the way" into a religion. But what if I told you everything you think you know about Mandalore is a lie built on another lie, built on a genocide so complete that an entire way of life was nearly erased from existence? We're not talking about simple warriors. We're talking about a culture that once conquered half the galaxy and made the Jedi tremble, a planet turned radioactive by its own people. A society that tore itself apart so violently that survivors had to choose between forgetting their past or being consumed by it. This is the story of honor twisted into fanaticism, of peace bought with extinction, of warriors forced to choose between identity and survival. Because Mandalore isn't just a planet. It's a warning about what happens when a culture's greatest strength becomes its fatal weakness. The ancient Mandalorians. The first Mandalorians weren't human. They were the Taung, gray-skinned warriors who worshipped war as art. To them, combat wasn't survival, it was religion. Every member was a weapon from birth to death. Their genius was inclusivity through violence. Anyone who could fight and live by their code could be Mandalorian. Species didn't matter, strength did. The Mandalorian creed spread like a virus, converting conquered enemies into brothers. But a culture built on war always needs enemies. When the Taung sought the ultimate challenge, they made the mistake that would haunt their descendants for millennia. They went to war with the Jedi. The Mandalorian Wars. Nearly 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, Mandalorians launched a crusade against the Republic, not to conquer, but to test themselves against the galaxy's greatest warriors. The Jedi were mystics who saw the future. Mandalorians were soldiers with steel and fire. It should have been a slaughter, but it wasn't. They adapted, inventing weapons to counter the Force. Flamethrowers, sonic blasts, and squad tactics that overwhelmed even Jedi reflexes. The galaxy bled until Jedi Knights Revan and Malak defied their council and took the war to Mandalore itself. On the planet Malachor V, Revan unleashed the Mass Shadow Generator, a super weapon that crushed fleets into the surface, killing thousands in seconds and leaving a wound in the Force. When Revan killed Mandalore the Ultimate, the old Mandalorian culture died with him. The survivors scattered, their purpose shattered. The warrior creed had led them to extinction. Satine Kryze and the death of the old ways. Thousands of years later, Duchess Satine Kryze tried to save her people by abandoning their past. Mandalore's surface was a wasteland, so she built domed cities and outlawed armor, weapons, and warrior training. Peace through pacifism, but also peace through forgetting. Her movement, the New Mandalorians, believed violence was barbaric. But exiles calling themselves Death Watch, led by Pre Vizsla, saw her as a traitor to their heritage. To them, a Mandalorian without warrior spirit was no Mandalorian at all. Vizsla sought to restore the old ways and, in his desperation, allied with Darth Maul. Together, they overthrew Satine's rule. But Maul betrayed him, challenged him to single combat, and killed him, claiming the Darksaber and Mandalorian leadership by their own sacred law. An outsider, a Sith, had conquered Mandalore using its own traditions. The planet descended into civil war. The fall of Satine. Maul captured Satine and brought her before Obi-Wan Kenobi, who once loved her. To torture Obi-Wan, Maul murdered Satine with the Darksaber. She died in his arms, proving both her own philosophy and its flaw pacifism had left Mandalore defenseless, yet violence had destroyed it again. That was Mandalore's tragedy. Every attempt to save it through war or peace only led to ruin. The Great Purge. Years later, after brief freedom under Bo-Katan and the Republic, the Empire came. It didn't conquer Mandalore, it erased it. The Night of 1,000 Tears burned domed cities into glass. The Empire melted Mandalorian Beskar, turning their culture into scrap metal. Survivors scattered across the galaxy. Those who lived hid in sewers and deserts, clinging to fragments of their heritage. The Purge nearly ended Mandalorian civilization, but from the ashes rose something new, not a people, but a creed. The Way of the Tribe. After the Purge, survivors formed hidden sects like the Tribe, ruled by the Armorer and bound by a single law. This is the way. Never remove your helmet. Never question the creed. To them, survival meant absolute tradition. Every piece of Beskar was holy, every rule unbreakable. But this rigid version was born from trauma. not history. The old Mandalorians were adaptive, not fanatical. The tribe turned identity into chains, and one of its followers, Din Djarin, would be the first to break them. Din Djarin and the meaning of the creed. Din began as a bounty hunter with no purpose beyond the next job. Then he found Grogu, a Force-sensitive child. Protecting the foundling was the most Mandalorian act possible, but when he removed his helmet to say goodbye, he became an apostate. Exiled, he kept his armor and honor anyway. Din proved that being Mandalorian isn't blind obedience, it's protecting others. Even when tradition says not to, his compassion redefined strength. Where the old Mandalorians saw honor and conquest, Din found it in mercy. Bo-Katan and the Darksaber's curse. Bo-Katan Kryze, Satine's sister, fought for decades to unite her people. She carried the Darksaber, symbol of leadership, but tradition said it had to be won in combat. When she accepted it as a gift, many refused to follow. Even with the symbol of unity, Mandalorians remained divided by their own rules. The Darksaber, once proof of honor, had become a curse. One leader wanted it but couldn't claim it. Another won it but didn't want to rule. Their story showed the real enemy wasn't outsiders, it was tradition that no longer served its people. The living waters and the mythosaur. Beneath Mandalore's poisoned surface lie the living waters, said to cleanse sin and restore identity. When Din bathes there, he isn't just reclaiming faith, he's proving that redemption for Mandalore is still possible. And when the legendary mythosaur stirs beneath those waters, it's a sign. The old Mandalore isn't dead. Its spirit sleeps, waiting to be reawakened with wisdom, not violence. Rebuilding the future. By the time of The Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, Din, and others return to rebuild their shattered world. They come from different sects, different beliefs. Some never remove helmets. Some do, but all choose to come home. Mandalore's hope isn't in one creed or weapon, but in the willingness to adapt while remembering who they are. Culture survives not because everyone agrees, but because enough people care to keep fighting for it. Even the child Grogu, learning both the Force and the way, represents a new balance, a future where Mandalorians no longer fear change. The final lesson, this is the way. This is the way. At first, those words meant obedience, helmets on, questions off, but after centuries of war, peace, and rebirth, the phrase has changed. Now it means something deeper, that there are many ways to be Mandalorian. The path is not fixed, it's walked. Tradition isn't a prison, it's a guide. The real Mandalorians are those who understand their past yet refuse to be ruled by it. They know that no fall is final, no destruction complete, and no culture truly dies as long as someone remembers what it stood for. Mandalore fell from honor into chaos, but from chaos comes creation. And what's being born in the ruins isn't the old Mandalore reborn, but a new one, forged by choice, unity, and understanding. This is the way.